Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's news. Starting off with wars and rumors of wars. The Islamic State, created by the United States and its Gulf Emirate associates, and trained by the United States military in Jordan, has become the dog which is about to bite the hand that feeds it. The IS is now vowing to broaden its war campaign to include killing Americans wherever and whenever it can. They are indeed gearing up for attacks against America. Robert Spencer, White House Director of Jihad Watch, said, quote, "They have said they are going to go after Americans and that American civilians are all legitimate targets. It seems to be absolutely certain they will be trying to kill as many Americans as possible in the United States as well as elsewhere." Close quote. Further, there are Americans who have gone to the Middle East to join the Islamic State. They're being programmed to conduct suicide bombings and will pose great risks upon their return to the States. Last Tuesday, August 19th, the IS presented a horrific videotape titled "A Message to America," showing the beheading of American James Foley, a 40-year-old photojournalist who was covering the Syrian civil war, and another American journalist, Stephen Joel Sotloff, is also seen in the video on his knees, clad in an orange jumpsuit. The video was packaged with a new Islamic State posting on social media sites threatening the United States, saying, quote, "We will drown all of you in blood," close quote. The IS said they will behead Sotloff next if the U.S. continues its airstrikes. British authorities say that they suspect the black-clad executioner in the video is a British citizen, and that hundreds of its nationals have joined the militants and have committed some of its most brutal killings. Germany and France say about 1,300 of their nationals have joined jihadist groups, including the IS. In the video, the terrorist group said it was beheading James Foley in retaliation for U.S. airstrikes against its positions in northern Iraq. The following day, late Wednesday, August 20th, the Obama administration revealed that the president had authorized a mission earlier this year to rescue James Foley and other Americans held captive, but the operation failed because the hostages were not there. And this is embarrassingly ridiculous. Even though the operation was a failure, the White House is casting it as proof that the U.S. will do whatever it can to rescue Americans held captive abroad. The framework for an international coalition to combat the Islamic State began to form on Wednesday, August 20th, when Britain, Italy, Germany, and France said they would be delivering weapons and other military gear to the Kurdish fighters. P.S. President Obama gave a brief televised address on Wednesday, the day after the Islamic State's beheading video was aired on YouTube, and 4 minutes after leaving the podium, he was teeing off on the greens, laughing with friends and fist-bumping them during a 5-hour round at Farm Neck Golf Course on Martha's Vineyard. This was his 7th round of 18 holes in 10 days. Turning to Gaza. Egyptian attempts to broker an end to the war between Israel and Hamas collapsed in heavy fighting on Tuesday, August 19th, with Palestinian militants firing dozens of rockets breaking the ceasefire agreement once again, and Israel responding with airstrikes across the Gaza Strip. Because of Hamas breaking the truce, Israel promptly recalled its negotiators from truce talks in Cairo. Israel said 3 rockets were fired out of Gaza nearly 8 hours before the ceasefire, extended for 1 day on Monday, was due to expire. Thousands of Palestinians fled their homes in neighborhoods of eastern Gaza City on Tuesday, August 19th, carrying bags of clothes, pillows, and mattresses after the renewed Israeli airstrikes. Hundreds of Palestinians streamed out of Shejaiya, and thousands more were leaving the Zaytun and Sha'af areas, alarmed by a series of explosions and heading towards shelters in UN schools. More than 2,000 Palestinians, most of them civilians, were killed, according to Palestinian and UN officials, and tens of thousands of people are homeless. Turning to Israel. If you've been employing the Red Alert app, as I have been, you probably found yourself in a very surprised state a few times over the past week or so, as alerts sounding off rocket fire by Hamas at an alarming rate, very different from the norm. Seems to me, a week or so ago, I would hear 1, 2, maybe 3 firings at a time. The past few days, I'm sure you've noticed if you've been listening, they're going off like crazy. 5, 10, even 18 at a time, and a little more constant. It seems to me this thing is ramping up. Well, in response to that wake of renewed rocket fire, along with an exodus of Negev residents from their homes last week, Israel is considering launching another heavy ground offensive in Gaza. As Communications Minister Gilad Erdan indicated Saturday, August 23rd, quote, "The purpose of a ground offensive could be retaking Gaza fully and the collapse of Hamas rule or specific attacks on the organization itself," close quote. On Saturday, August 23rd, in a period of just 24 hours, at least 86 rockets were fired into Israel. 4-year-old Daniel Traegerman was killed on Friday, August 22nd, from a mortar shell strike on kibbutz Nahal Oz, sending most of its residents elsewhere and prompting strong responses from Israel's political echelon. In response to this tragic event, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed, quote, "The IDF and the Shin Bet," it's Israel's security agency, "will intensify the operations against Hamas and the other terrorist organizations in Gaza until the goals of Operation Protective Edge are achieved," close quote. Turning to Islam. The world's 2 most dangerous Islamic terror groups appear to be joining forces. A statement purportedly by Al-Qaeda's Yemen-based branch, that's Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, also known as AQAP, expresses support for the Islamic State, the Yemen Times reported on Tuesday, August 19th. Quote, "We stand by the side of our Muslim brothers in Iraq against the American and Iranian conspiracy and their agents of the apostate Gulf rulers," close quote. This AQAP statement in support of the IS is significant because Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri publicly disavowed the IS last year after al-Badri made a bid for leadership of all al-Qaeda elements among the anti-Assad forces in Syria. At the time, the presumably Pakistan-based Zawahiri declared the al-Nusra Front to be the only al-Qaeda affiliate engaged in the anti-Assad campaign, and instructed al-Badri to stick to Iraq. But the order was ignored, and the Islamic State continued its violent operations in both Syria and Iraq. Ever since the IS declared its caliphate in June across areas it controls in both countries and called on Muslims everywhere to pledge loyalty to al-Badri, now calling himself Caliph Ibrahim. Observers have been closely watching the response from al-Qaeda and other jihadist groups. Some experts have warned that as the Islamic State's notoriety grows, al-Qaeda may seek to carry out a major terrorist attack to demonstrate its ongoing ability and relevance, with the AQAP seen as the most likely affiliate to do so. On Sunday, August 17th, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers gave a similar warning and mentioned such plots being enacted in Yemen in particular. The AQAP was established in 2009 by al-Qaeda terrorists in Yemen and Saudi Arabia. I thought the IS was what al-Qaeda has become. However, that is not the case, my friends. There are a number of al-Qaeda groups that are still operating independently of the IS. The IS plans to expand throughout the Levant, which includes Syria, southern Turkey, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, and may soon be joining forces and strengthening its force with other al-Qaeda groups like al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula, that's AQAP, and al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, also known as AQIM. As I stated in the top of this newscast, the IS is currently making strong threats against America and is attempting to develop the capability of blowing up an entire American city. With recent reports of the IS entering the United States through its weakened border control in the Southwest, Mexican drug cartels are now conducting regular talks with the IS. Along with the IS's interest in flying the flag of Islam over the White House, and all of this being compounded by its large campaign to indoctrinate and draw the younger generation into joining the caliphate, this situation has been growing in leaps and bounds, and America may soon be seeing another catastrophic event, perhaps even greater than 9/11. The al-Qaeda splinter groups include thousands of European and American jihadists who fought in the Syrian civil war and came to Iraq to train and fight, first on behalf of various jihadist groups, and now on behalf of the Islamic State. And just recently, there have been more than 2,000 Europeans and some 100 Americans who have gone to Syria to join the IS. Palestinian supporters in New York City unfurled a large flag on the Manhattan Bridge during a solidarity march in Lower Manhattan Wednesday night, August 20th. The banner waved in the evening breeze for up to 45 minutes before New York City police officers took it down. Those who hung the flag were nowhere to be found, and this was just 1 month after artists scaled the Brooklyn Bridge and replaced the American flags with white flags, an act that was widely acknowledged as a breach of security. This poses a question. Is the New York Police Department capable of protecting New York City from an attack by the IS? The growing military prowess of the IS, coupled with its deep sources of financing, poses a threat to the United States that surpasses the al-Qaeda threat that brought the unforgettable event of 9/11, my friends. Turning to Russia, The conflict between Russia and the Ukraine hit dangerous new heights on Friday, August 22nd, as Russia sent an enormous aid convoy into rebel-held Ukrainian territory without the permission of the Kiev government, a move that a top Ukrainian security official described as a direct invasion. The maneuver came amid reports from NATO that Ukrainian troops were coming under Russian artillery fire from inside their borders. Russian artillery support, both cross-border and from within the Ukraine, is being employed against the Ukrainian armed forces. This is a blatant breach of Russia's international commitments that will intensify the crisis it has helped to create and fuel. This is the first time the alliance has accused Russian forces of firing artillery at the Ukrainian army from within the Ukraine. The White House believes that Russia planned the convoy as a pretext for invasion. While the Russian vehicles violate the Ukraine's sovereignty, Russia maintains 20,000 combat-ready troops on the Ukrainian border, making them capable of invading the Ukraine on very short notice. Allowing the trucks to disperse across the Luhansk region without any Ukrainian controls, in effect, allows Russia to force a ceasefire in Kiev's fight against pro-Russian separatists. Ukrainian officials refused to let the trucks through a government-controlled border crossing in the Kharkiv region, so the convoy headed for rebel-controlled territory instead. The trucks then spent more than a week idling outside the border crossing to Luhansk, which is controlled by pro-Russian rebels, as government ministers tried to hammer out a deal. Turning to London, more anti-Israel protests were hitting the streets of London last week. Massive crowds gathered to condemn Israel for defending itself against the incessant attacks from HAMAS. Only now, they were adding something even more revolting to their strategies: esteeming Hitler. Not only were many wearing the t-shirt you see pictured here, but vendors were everywhere setting up shop and profiting from these events by selling all sorts of anti-Israel items to the crowds. As it was in the days of Noah. Reading from the book of Luke, chapter 17, verses 26 and on, with Yeshua speaking, he said, "As it came to be in the days of Noah, so also shall it be in the days of the bane of Adam, the Son of Man," Yeshua, our Messiah. They were eating, they were drinking, they were marrying, they were given in marriage, until the day that Noah went into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. And likewise, as it came to be in the days of Lot, they were eating, they were drinking, they were buying, they were selling, they were planting, they were building. But on the day Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and sulfur from the Shamayim, the heavens, and destroyed all. It shall be the same in the day the bane of Adam is revealed. As it was in Noah's days, the door of the ark was shut, and then the flood came. Matthew chapter 25 gives the parable of the 10 virgins. The door to the wedding chamber was shut, and then the tribulation will begin. The lawless one, the Antichrist, the Mahdi, will be revealed, and evil will no longer be restrained on the earth. In Noah's and Lot's days, homosexuality was accepted as a normal thing, just like today. And everyone was living their lives as though everything was normal, business as usual, just like today. All was seen as normal by the world's standards, but not normal by Elohim's standards, just like today. For example, today, A rainbow is seen as the symbol of homosexuality, but a rainbow is not the symbol of homosexuality. A rainbow is the symbol of Elohim's covenant with mankind to never destroy the earth by flood again. Vicky Beeching, a Christian worship singer who has become popular with evangelists in the United States, has been urging churches to change their doctrine on homosexual behavior while announcing she is a lesbian. This popular artist is at the forefront of a coming tidal wave of Christian homosexual theology. The fact is that from Genesis to Revelation, the Bible teaches that homosexuality is nothing less than rebellion against Elohim and a harbinger of his wrath. Further, in that same spirit of Antichrist, people have been reenacting the 2013 action horror film titled The Purge by conducting 12-hour sessions of publicly staged group acts of violence. Genesis chapter 6, verse 11. The earth was depraved and putrid in Elohim's sight, and the land was filled with violence, desecration, infringement, outrage, assault, and lust for power. The word we see there in the Bible as violence is the Aramaic Hebrew word HAMAS, actually pronounced HAMAS. See Strong's exhaustive concordance number H2554. HAMAS is spelled Chet Mem Samech, and as pictured here in the ancient Aramaic Hebrew pictographic letter forms, Chet, picture of a fence. It has to do with dividing things. And Mem, it's a picture of water. Water has to do with the Word, the Bible. The water washes us clean. The Father's Word washes us clean. Has to do with blood, the blood of Yeshua that brings us our salvation. And Samech is a picture of a thorn, a sharp, piercing shield. Has to do with the Father's hedge of protection. Now, in this case, we're talking in the negative. Hamas would have to do with dividing yourself from anyone who believes in the Creator of heaven and earth. It has to do with chaos and rejection of Yeshua, the water, the Word, and the action of His blood. And it has to do with being a thorn, a piercing effect in the world. It amazes me how everyone seems to think everyone around them is just as normal as could be. If I could go back in time to 1970 and show my friends today's news, today's television programming, the current forms we have of communicating are actually not communicating with each other, my friends would be in absolute shock. But like the frog that's placed in a pot of cool water and gradually cooked alive, today no one is noticing how high the temperature of the water we've all been sitting in has become, and it appears that most will continue to not notice until it is too late. That's the news for this week, my friends. Thank you for your support. Until next time, shalom.
Crowded rooms, I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath a naked moon, sharing confidential moods. and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we matter.